So we would like to invite our partners. There are people who make this possible in all manner of nice ways. Gute Zentrum, Kampala, or is it Kampala? And the representative, the amazing Barbara.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, so what is Gute? What do you guys do? Why are you here?
So we are, first of all, a language center and also a culture center. So we are here in the cultural perspective because the aim is to bridge Kampala and German cultural ties. Okay, I hope that line is right. And so we try to boost the Kampala scene in the cultural sense. So we are here because we liked the idea of studio talk because it brings the artists together and there's a profoundness in it. I feel like it's what most artists need right now. There's a sense of togetherness so that they really discuss the issues that need to be discussed. So when we came across the idea, we fell in love with it and we're like, let us find a way to come in. So that's why we are here. So I'm coming from the perspective of working with artists. So something that I've noticed over time is like even with the different organizations that we work with, there's always going to be that assumption that, okay, they are just artists and maybe they don't need to be paid that much. And so there's a way their experience is underlooked. I think because the artists do something so effortlessly, they think that, okay, they've done it in a few hours. They don't need to be paid for even the time that they put to be better at this. So now an example, what I'm trying to get to is, I think there's always going to be that pill that we have to swallow as artists that they might never get us, that they might always perceive us as those people, like those people. For example, there was this argument that I was just having today in a meeting where we were talking about photography and videography fees. And these other people were saying, but that is too much to give a photographer or a videographer. And then on top of that, they wanted the photographer and videographer to also be able to do social media at the same time. And I was just like, a content creator cannot also be a social media manager. They are two different roles. It's too intense. And this is why we have to give them this amount of money. So it's constant battling to get to that point where someone can sit down and tell, let's say, videographer that this is what we want you to do. This is the content that we need from you. Can you tell us how much? And we don't flinch at the idea of like, okay, that is too much, because this person is coming with a lot of experience, with a lot of practice in this field. And so we have to sit down and be like, okay, that is what we are going to give you, without shouting about or reduce it by like 600K or something like that. So it's also, I've seen it's also a continuous battle with the different organizations that work with artists. There's a way they see them still. Yeah, so there's a long way to go.
Right. So to the rest of us, I know you've experienced some of these misconceptions. She has introduced us to that particular part of the conversation. What have been some of those misconceptions that you've found either in your career path or probably at your place of work or generally by persons who are not in your space? Please, microphone.
Mine was very interesting.
Yes, please.
So I show up at a Catholic church to take pictures in pants. And these guys wrap me with a lesu. And I, oh my God, I was pissed. Wow, I was pissed. And I asked this lady, actually the Reverend, I think an altar boy, and I asked him, how do you expect me to squat with this lesu. And the very interesting thing is, okay, I was the only girl in the team of photographers. So they told me, if you can't have this, you're not entering the church. Yeah. And I am supposed to take the pictures of the bride and groom. I was the not secondary. I was the primary photographer. And they tell me I cannot enter to take the pictures of the bride and groom. I'm there at the door in my lesu. And, oh God, what I do is I tell these guys who are taking the pictures, just go ahead, shoot, you'll find me outside. The whole service, I am sitting outside because in my lesu, because I am not allowed to enter this church with pants. So I come back home and I am quarreling. I am fuming. And I tell these guys, how dare she? Oh, how dare they? Like, yes. And I almost got the reverend. I told him, like, if I squat in pants and I squat in a lesu, which one is more weird? Or I don't know. I saw the old man in all his awe. I told him, it's okay, I'll stay outside. That was my experience. I had to keep quiet. I couldn't shout at the reverend. I cannot shout at the bride and groom. My God, they're giving their vows. And then after that, of course, you leave. But then I think that someone after such experiences, it's not the first time, meanwhile. I went for another Angela. They wanted to dress me in a Gomez. That's what I really refused. It was actually a kuchala. Kuchala Kwanjula. There's the one where they enter into the house with I think the father of the bride. We're men only, literally. Yes. So I enter and they're like, who are you? Hey. And then they call the singer. There was real drama. So I've had a lot of issues with that because sometimes people come and ask, hey, oh my God, you do weddings. Okay, I want you to take my pictures. Then they're like, oh, do you have men in your team? Do you have men in your team? Like, you come and shoot, but do you have men? Like, you can get the money, but who's your boss? Who's your boss? Like, you came to me, you went through my website, you know that I am a female photographer. The stories are many. The stories are very many. One asked me if I shoot with my phone. I was like, wow. And I looked at the gentleman and I'm like, no, I shoot with a camera. So those are the challenges I've really gone through as me. Yes.
Okay. Do you have anybody else? Guys?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I have an interesting one too. So, before I started strategy, I'm a visual artist. And my first gig, I will call it a gig, was a school. So we usually prioritize the inception stage. But for some reason, we did the inception stage via WhatsApp, and it was over text, not even audio. Okay, so I go to the site and I do all the measurements because the school required a lot of mirrors throughout, and then also a bit of retouch in the whole renovation throughout. So I go and I tour the place, but the boss was not there. So all this time around, we have not had contact. Okay, so I come up with a quotation and send a very beautiful, huge quotation. Very huge. Yeah, a person looks at it and is like, yeah, this is reasonable. Okay. So that day I deploy, because she sent the first deposit. So that day I deploy my guys to come and work. And he finds my boys and asks, who is your boss? Then I come out and he says, no, I'm saying, your boss. So I say, I am the one. No, he's like, no, I mean the one who employs. I'm like, we were on a call a few weeks ago. I am the one. When the age and maybe how we look sometimes as artists kind of make people a bit minimizers. It's until they see the work later. Because I remember after I'd done the work, I was now getting referrals. The one who was being called, young, we can't give you this amount of money. What will you use it for? Actually, they asked me that question. What are you going to use that money for? So I'm like, okay. Oh, Jesus. Because he wasn't believing it. He actually got out his phone and is like, sir, this is the quotation you sent me. I mean, what are you going to use this money for? I'm like, after doing, I can't tell you what I'm going to use the money for, but that is what it's worth. But yes, we went through all these because he had already signed a contract, a pre-contract, so he couldn't go back out of his word. But after I'd done the work with, he's the first person who came and said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what I took you through before you even started. And from there, I have had multiple referrals through the same. So it's one of the misconceptions. But just to add on something, I've discovered that misconceptions in Kampala, Uganda are different from outside countries. Yes. You know where we struggle to be appreciated sometimes, maybe as a photographer? If you go to maybe, let me say, the same way photographers are appreciated in Kampala are different. It's different how they're appreciated maybe, Hollywood, you know? Because they know there are people who dedicate their lives to study this. So when you go abroad, sometimes misconceptions change, you know? If you're not valued outside there, you might be valued, actually. So they differ a bit. So I was just bringing that to ears. No. I'm not saying we go out. We actually, I think by the end of this discussion today, we'll understand that actually we have power to change that narrative. Yeah, thank you so much.
All right. You wanted to add something, please?
I just wanted to speak about, which I didn't anticipate, but when she was talking about her experiences, for us to always consider that even as we are talking about the stereotypes, there's what we call, what we refer to as intersectionality, where artists are disfavored and stereotyped and what. But even within the artists as a group, then based on our identities, either as a woman or as a black man, someone is saying we go out, I'm like, you a black man. As a black man or as a young person, then like the stereotypes then begin to differ from one, identity or experience to another. But even when we're talking about, yes, he's speaking about geographical differences, but even within this context, the fact that we can sit here and be like, okay, we are creative artists, we know this is happening, we're doing big stuff, everybody's doing big stuff, despite the stereotypes and everything, but we are having this conversation, we have the space, and we are able to all convene here. Think about our fellow creative artists who live in, rural areas or at community level, who are equally, sometimes even more talented, but don't have opportunities to interact with first of all, fellow creative artists, or even get to have this conversation, or even recognize that stereotypes are wrong, yeah, and they shouldn't define you, or then even have access to the jobs that we get to have access to, despite, So I just want to like talk about that, and so that we can remain aware in this conversation, but even outside, just that, that even with us generally being stereotyped and disfavored based on our different identities, clearly you can be all photographers. People think, you just take photos and send us photos. And then you're a woman photographer. Then you realize that when you get to a place, they may say, no, go back. You came, you're smart, you're ready to, you have all your, I'm starting this. And then, yeah. So, yeah, I wanted us to talk about that. But also, in terms of can I talk about my experiences? I think there have been very many ridiculous ones, some of which I no longer even recognize. I talked about earlier, something about like, and I think she was talking about the pricing of where someone will offer you a price and you're like, you really don't have any regard for creative artists. But even when the subject of, for example, parents, so some of us, even when our parents are like, okay, we see what you're doing, and we support it, yeah, which is my parents. My mom is always like, just do your best, do what you're doing. My dad, the same, like, whatever you do it best was our thing. It doesn't matter what you're doing, do it best. But then I think after university, when I began contributing often to the paper, and I was excited about it. Yes, I was doing interns here, there in a PR agency, but internship and the money there. And then, but I was really, really excited about contributing to the paper, because as a young person reading this newspaper, I was like, oh my God, I want one day for my byline to be in the Daily Monitor, right? And then when I began, and then it was becoming a continuous thing, sometime we're in the car with my dad, and he said, I want you to write, and writing is great, but writing is good for the ego, but you need to find something that will give you money. You want to be rich, you want to make money. And so you realize that even, okay, of course, there are people who have it worse, who are their parents. I was once with a group of other authors with whom we wrote the anthology, Odokonyero, where we're just doing press tours, published authors, and being excited, and our parents are buying books and signing them. And then she was telling me a story of how growing up, while some of us were being encouraged, being bought books to read, when her father would find her reading, like any novel, would tear it up and throw it out. So she had to read in secret. And as any writer knows that to write, you have to read. So yeah, like just that, recognizing that even with generally us being stereotyped, our experiences and our identities and, the stereotypes differ and kind of, there's a wave based on where you are, who you are, as a woman or man, as a young person, as a Black person,
Okay. All right. So, okay.
Yeah, shortly, I want to comment about, to just add on something. Geoffrey, for me, it's basically more like the idea of maybe creatives towards our parents or our elder or the society. Sometimes it depends on how knowledgeable they are about the whole process or about the whole thing. And then as well, for example, concerning knowledge, I can relate to my dad. There's sometime I really wanted to buy equipment. And I knew he had some money now. Because I had people telling me, hey man, nowadays he's having a lot of money. So I was like, okay, let me first go bank. So I reach home. I shared a meeting with him. We sit, we talk, we grab tea. As we are talking, I start from the roots so that I can reach the roof, explaining why you should support me, why I need your money. Because, I start to explain at the end. And then he start telling me stories. As he's telling you stories, man, sometimes I think most times I had shut down, and the stories were just passing here. I could just wake up with the listening part, and then I'm like, yeah. But of course, when I was pissed, and then till sometime when he met a friend, a long-time friend, they were holding up a conversation, and then this friend, she was a lady having a daughter, and then she tells my dad, you know, my daughter, she's searching for a job, she studied journalism, what. But even I bought her a camera. So after my dad called me, most times he calls me, he's like, you know, you get this contact. I'm giving this lady your contact so that you can talk to her and you advise her about the field. You can even maybe tell her what to do about the, more like deciding for her about the future, because he thinks I have a lot of knowledge about it. So later he called me, we hold up a conversation, ask him who was the lady, some information. And he tells me, these parents, balabufu, she even bought her daughter a camera. And I just laughed. So sometime back when I went home, I was just visiting. And then he told, because later he had not told me the idea of more like creative. And then now he can start telling me, you know, you need to start taking maybe pictures, like, you know how this documentary, for example, a war. And then I'm like, I told you. In my head, I was like, I told you such a thing long time ago. So now you're telling me the same thing. So what I'm trying to bring out is, I think it's more of informing the society, because sometimes they are not knowledgeable or they don't know the advantages and the disadvantages. Yes, there are disadvantages. For example, on the side of creatives, when we are still young at home, every morning and evening, you know, it's a little sloppy. So every morning and evening, early, like at 6:30, and late, like at 7:30, there was a gang of 2 boys that used to stand on the hill, and then they sing for the whole society. They were shouting. So everyone was just tired of that. So I don't know how you can reach maybe to a parent who has experienced such, and then you start telling him or her, like, man, me, I left school, I want to be a singer. Because even more like the image that the music industry had, more like to the society where everyone was fighting, and then where they used to see people maybe taking drugs. So I think it's more of also how us, who have known how beneficial it is to us, to inform the people that get to surround us, or how to represent or to present ourselves to the ones that see us. So basically something like that.
All right. So I'm going to post this to Eugene. Okay.
My name is Chris Chitandwe, and Mike is a brother to me. I'm happy to be here. I have some bad news. The challenges are going to be there. They will be there, and they will be there. Maybe till Jesus comes back. We have to deal with it. But we have to find maybe solutions. The problem is with us mainly. She talked about poor pay. And then she talked about the church where she was given a list or something. And then your parents. I think we have to get organized. We're not organized. We dress poorly. We come late. You know. I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about. You know, it's on your. We don't research, you know. Our clients research. A good photographer, you can always know. The equipment, even if you're not a photographer, you can always know. the equipment they have, how they have dressed, you know. There are socials you can always know, but we don't research. We dress poorly, and we have a bad industry where there is free exit and free entry. Guys who haven't gone to school, they can jump in. People who have failed, they just jump in, you know. But
I would like to jump in. It is at this point that I would like to jump in.
Sorry, allow me to take back the mic before we escalate this any further than this. So I'm going to post this to Eugene. The reason why I'm posting this to Eugene is because he's one person I've admired as a creative. I've seen him grow. I've seen him go from one place to the other. I've seen him achieve. Believe me, you're my idol in a way. If you didn't know. So
my mother should hear you say this.
So why do you think the creative path in the African setting is seen, is not recognized?
Why do I think the creative path in our African context seems not to be recognized? I'm adding seems because perceptions are important. There's a time I got an opportunity to judge a competition, a graphic design competition. And all the people who are submitting from African countries, their work looked very much like US, UK, etc., etc. In fact, the winner of that particular competition came from Seoul in South Korea. And because for them, they have sort of internalized what their culture is and have accepted it. And then, so they have internalized and accepted, but then gone on to recognize its inside value as a source of inspiration. Now, I think that for us within our African context is that we consume creative output so much, so regularly, that we never attach value to it. First of all, as Ugandans, we are very funny people. So which makes it very difficult for us to walk in and pay a comedian. Eh? So yes, it is a coping mechanism, but we are genuinely funny people, so it is a very difficult stretch for us to move from a product or service that you consume without having to pay for and then making it a thing that, because whatever it is that you do as a creative, unless your creative output starts to earn you money, it's a hobby. So we will enjoy our ego outputs, which is why your father was like, hey, writing is nice, but it is good for the ego. We will enjoy our creative outputs until they come to a point where they are sort of meeting our basic needs. Yeah. So to your question, why is it seemingly that way? It is everywhere. Yeah. Creativity within our African context exists without trying. If you're a filmmaker, this is a hint. All the movies that are coming out over the next 10, 25 years are going to have origin stories that are based off of African characters. I think you have already felt that with Kazazimoto, and I think it is just going to get even more intense. So it's a great opportunity for us, but it is difficult for us to recognize it because it is around us every day. And so there's that. Echintu, familiarity breeds contempt. So we are always seeing it and etc. And also there's the perception that your brother dropped, which is that they are... Yeah, but chitufu omanyi amazima galuma oluusi. The beauty about being an props to you for going to uni for it. Actually, I was going to say, and you're probably the only one who has done that here. Is there anyone else who went and got a degree in photography? You got a degree in photography? Industrial art. Okay. I think that the beauty about not having gone to school in the things that you're going to pursue, especially within the creative space, is because creativity relies very much on your individual experience, and yet very often what education attempts to do is unify our experiences, make it singular, make it such that many of us have no diverging paths from our experience. So I think that for us, especially now, it's a great thing that people who are coming into the space are not people who have studied and built themselves in the space. I think that that's a good thing. And even when you look back in history, some of the greatest artists were scientists. You know, the guys who painted some of the greatest murals and etc. were actually, the guys who wrote the best poems and etc. were actually from a whole different sector realm. And I think that that gives you such a great contribution to this creative and culture space. But then again, to wrap up my answer, it is because it is everywhere, we undermine its value.
Let me go to him. Just a moment. Okay, please.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Sebaki J. I'm a visual artist. Now, I have two things to talk about. I'm going to talk about what you've just asked Mr. Eugene. Yeah, it's okay. I feel like we cannot say the creative path in Uganda is not appreciated. I always think like this. Uganda is a growing country. We are still, you know, we compare ourselves to Nigeria, but Nigeria has 200 million people. Only that is, you know, it sets the bar for them. Just that, the population. So Uganda is still growing. And the more the country grows, even the minds of the people grow and they develop. So people not being knowledgeable about creativity and all these things, I believe it's going to change as the country grows. So I feel like we as creatives, we need to be patient a little bit because of that fact. Then the second thing is about what Mr. said, that we are not serious, we dress poorly. I'm going to talk about dressing. When we say we dress, when you say we dress poorly, what is poorly? Because that's, who determines poor and not poor? Because he is in shorts. I'm not sounding offensive, but he is in shorts. There is a society where you can go right now. Right now, if you go like that, you're not welcome. Just like that. So can we say you're dressing poorly because you're not welcome there? No. It is perception, you know. And I'm going to lean on the side of creativity, that dress code is also part of creativity. Because we as creatives, we are expressive people. We do what we feel, you know, and what we understand as who we are. So the reason why I dress like this is because it says something about me that is not about whether good or bad. No, it's me, you know. So I feel like we need to be patient with how people think about us, how people see us. I believe we will get there.
Guten Abend. Hey. Okay. In short, good evening, guys. My name is Micheal Badru, and I'm a photographer. Talk about everything that's happening here, dress code and all that. I think we have to really put it in mind that you have to really look presentable. I don't know if I'm just spoiled that I've been working most of the time with the creative, not in the corporate people, but the way you approach to your client really matters. So if you're going to shoot, like, let's say, conference, you cannot come putting on shorts, jeans with t-shirts untucked in you know. I know it's your style, it tells who you are, but sometimes you just have to put it in mind that the people you're going to meet don't think the way you think. So let's just put that in mind. Also, the other thing is, he talked about you're not serious. At some point, we are not. There's a time I was in Fort Portal I'd gone with the camera, and the lens I had carried was not working, was faulty. So I made call. I had a friend, he's a policeman, because he usually takes photos in studios. So like, man, you take photos in studios. Can you get me in touch with the studio guys? I need a lens. So he made calls, he gave me a number, and everyone I called kept on telling me, you look for the president. I'm like, who is the president? So it turns out that guys in Fort Portal have a society that, connects them as photographers. Because no one was really willing to give me a lens when they don't know me. But if the president of the photographers in the community, he's going to carry a lens and say, here's a lens. So if morning comes, I meet the guy, he tells me, hey man, you get from Kampala, okay. So I asked him, they told me you're the president. President of what? He tells me, hey, yeah, in Fort Portal, we have a society of photographers whereby every studio, every photographer that is really meaning to do business, you have to be credible, and we let people know that you're a photographer. So I was like, okay, that's good, that's good. So he talks about we are not serious. I can't disagree. But also the problem in Kampala, in general, is most of the times we tend to be at competition with one another, and that's not something really good in the creative space. You just have to be collaborative with people, But competition, it really kills the creativity. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to come back to you, Edna. You had a point, but again, I'm going to also pose a question. But let me first hear your review before I do this.
So I wanted to just speak on what you had asked Eugene. Is this clear? Can you hear me? Okay. I've been told I wasn't speaking to the mic. Yeah, about the question about why it appears that the creative arts or the arts are not as appreciated in African contexts, or perhaps in our context, because when we look at SA and Nigeria, and I'm just like, even Kenya, I'm just like, not appreciated where? Yeah, I guess there is something to be said about, again, she mentioned something about how people think, oh my God, the ease with which we do the work, which is also not true. It's complex, yeah? It's not that easy. It appears easy, but it isn't always, yeah? But I think that it goes back to, even as we talk about like dressing, and yes, there's something to be said about when you're going somewhere. I guess when the next time you have to shoot a Catholic couple, you will wear, it's just to think about and be like, okay, maybe if I'm going to this place, dress a certain way. But I think that we had artists who didn't even go to school, people who did the Nero paintings, school wear, yeah? People who were making fire by stones, like the African traditional society is very rich with like creative artistry. I was reading Okot Pibitek's essay about storytelling in traditional societies, and he had like a Nacholi context where they would sit around, a fireplace and talk. But then instead of the elders telling the stories, every person, whether, as long as they could speak, someone at 5 years could be allowed to start to tell their own story, yeah? And he said that it was a way of fostering expression in even younger people. And I think that's beautiful. That doesn't even happen in school. I've been to classroom education. I honestly have an aversion to it because, like you said, it kind of forces us into this, which that's very also divergent to what creating is. So I look at it this way. We were here, we were creating, people were creating and were naturally, even those who were not creating, but then colonialism happens. Yeah, and forgive me if you're just like, oh my God, Edna, with your politics. Bear with me because there's something to be said about that. Then colonialism happens. Then there is classroom education. Then we are told that, and then the capitalism that I was talking about, we're told Yes, and the brainwash. She said brainwash. That then for you to have, it has become now a society where for you to survive, you have to have a job. And the jobs that are recognized are only the ones of people who have gone to that kind of education, mind you, African traditional societies had education in different ways. But the kind of education is if you go to school and sit in a classroom and be taught on this syllabi that it's even imported, right? That's why, right. Well, French Revolution, are you kidding? And so, like, everything from there on, our histories, our perceptions, even our parents are, victims to that mind. That's why we're being forced into doctor, lawyer. How many doctors and lawyers can we have? Okay, we need more doctors. Not enough. But, then everybody can't be. But somehow kids are being forced to be. Yeah, so I think I want us to, I'm not... saying one thing is entirely wrong or the other is entirely right. But again, going back to like recognizing the complexity that sometimes there is no this or other way. Sometimes we have to look at, he's saying, if you're going to shoot a conference, please, just those people, them. They went to classroom education, they dress in suits and humor them for that day, right? And yes, let's be organized because a lot of that, they dress badly there. Also, by the way, all of those are stereotypes, which stereotypes aren't entirely untrue. It's just getting a group of people and then labeling them with only one thing. Again, going back to complexity, artists are complex. Like people can appear disorganized, can appear dressing out of, what's considered formal. But I found that creatives are also very empathetic people and kind people. And some of my best friends, I don't use the term best friend, but some of my closest friends, some of the people who I do community with, most of them are creative artists, and I've kind of enjoyed because I recognize a kindness and empathy in them that I don't see in a lot of people who are struggling to climb the corporate ladder. Those people, they are scary sometimes. So what I'm saying is that we can recognize the complexity and also say, look, we were always creating. We don't have to kind of buy into the colonial or the remnants of colonial mindsets, but we can also try the things that might be helpful. Community is great. What this community in Fort Portal is doing is like, we could learn something from that. And so the complexity of it.
Just a minute. Okay, guys, I love our input. See, before we even critique ourselves as creatives, before we even critique our artwork, before we critique who we are, let's remember we are just we're creating. Otherwise, as we speak right now, we will not be talking about the artwork that's left on the stones in Kumi, Ngora, is it? That was a creative, whoever they were, they created that. But today, they are recognized across our history, actually. They hold a piece of our history. I'm going to come back to you, Edna. With all these stereotypes, with all these biases, do you think we can overcome this? And if so, how are we going to be able to overcome all this?
So I also agree that we can't be, that they perhaps will never be a time where we don't have challenges, right? As you can see, even within ourselves, we're already on blast. Disorganized, I've seen very many disorganized accountants, my God, right? But no one is putting a light on them. So perhaps we are here, the spotlight is on us. It may never be completely bliss and whatever. But yes, it's very, very possible, I think, to beat this. So two things. One, I know, and everyone talks about it because, again, like in this economy and the way operating within a capitalist society, you can be anti-capitalist all you want. The world within which we exist, you can't tell your landlord, by the way, these are capitalist systems and I will not, yeah. So, but we can try. I think even as we pursue our art, like monetizing our arts, because also we must not keep away from it, that Eugene was talking about how some of the things we do, we just do, we enjoy our art, it's, and just do it. Sometimes we don't even know it's a thing because it comes naturally to us. No, we must embrace monetizing, but in doing so, we can do it while also prioritizing community, right? I think that's what he was talking about when he says there's a lot of competition. I think healthy competition is great, but if we begin the thing of, oh, you're getting this grant, now I hate that they got this grant, let me go behind their back and talk to the grant and be like, that person has issues, and then, maybe they will take away the grant from them and give it to me. If someone wants some lens, they're going to take good care of it, and you're like, hey, but why did they get that job and not me? I won't give them that lens. If in my field as a writer, I try to always put people on. We must, like, that's the colloquialism, put people on. Like when you are in a room where they're like, okay, you've been invited, called to the table. You're a photographer. Who do you think? Can you recommend another? Don't be like, I won't call that Nino. He already has, why, let me keep quiet. And then they bring some person. Put Nino on, Be like, I know this great guy. And let him also be in the room. If you're already swamped with other work, and then, you get my point. I think we must, even as we pursue that monetization, and then, yes, we need money, we need to make that money. And our art deserves money, heck, right? We can do it while not falling into the trap of what that very, I hesitate to use the word crazy, but crazy capitalism of to the point of over money, want to, again, kill each other in that sense, right? So, yes, as we pursue the work and try to get the money, let us look at community as, if I grow, he's growing. If he grows, I'm growing. If we are recognized, if he's shooting something that's professional, that those people would have never hired a person like that, or they usually get, Bazungu to shoot, and now it's this person, then that means the perceptions are starting to change, whether it's you or not, right? And you're so, one, community. Two, collaboration. We may not always, like I was saying earlier, I realized that I don't have some crazy amount of, generational wealth lying around. But I want to do this work. I thought, okay, we have to have conversations with creative artists and try to break the stereotypes, and let's have this series where we talk to one and then, put it out there. But I also knew that to do this work, I had to be healthy, I had to be fed, I had to have a roof over my head. And so, yeah, in doing so, yes, I do part of the what is considered as that professional work. By the way, but we can also dress in those professional suits. Yeah, we wear them and we go and we do the thing, right? But even with that, it hasn't always been enough. Where I've gotten my biggest strength is like, again, reaching out to people all the time. For any project I'm on, I can always be like, Eugene, just recently, I'm like, man, I need to do this, and I need some, like, I know that in that area I'm not very conversant while he is. I'm like, so give me some pointers real quick. And I'm calling him out of a meeting, but like then he's gracious enough to be like, okay, let me step out and give you these tips. And then many times I've called on Nino, right? Where I know the basics of photography, but I'm really not I'm not like your professionals, right? So, or graphics design, and then I've had to be like, okay, maybe this thing, I'm trying to do this thing, I may not have the resources for it, and please don't not pay people. Don't use it as a thing of also like, let my friend do free work. But I think as we try to figure it out, there is something to be said about collaborating in that way, where you might need maybe buying equipment. How about you be like, okay, I can write for you guys whatever you need. So how about for that I use your equipment? I think that in the meantime, while we build and get these the moneyed people who would want to support our work to finally recognize it as, I think that it's a thing that we can use to, get up there. Yeah.
I wanted to say this even before you ask that question. Friends, if we want to see this come to an end, the stereotyping, misconception, and whatever you people have been saying, I feel like we need to do something. And this one thing is we need to work hard. I feel like we as creatives, we need to put in the work.
Sorry, when you say put in the work, kindly briefly dive into it.
Let me dive into it. My friend, I have a friend of mine called Yiga. He's an artist. And he always says this. Just as an accountant wakes up in the morning to go to the bank and he spends there 9 hours, just try one day in whatever field you are in, or a writer or photographer, wake up in the morning, spend 9 hours in that field you're in. If you're a painter, spend 9 hours. Of course, when I say spend 9 hours, I don't mean do this, no. But put in that work, Just try that for 2 weeks. The results are going to be crazy. So I feel like we as creatives, we need to put in the work. But the truth is, we as creatives, we chill a lot.
Already?
Man, we always chill. We always fun. So I feel like do not take up. Do not color, Because the only way you can show these people that you're serious about this is when you work, And when you put in the work, man, Katonda alaba, he will bless you. And when we get rich or when we get money or whatever you want to do, for example, if I have an exhibition in London, trust me, my auntie will never say that art is not, She will be the most proud person. She'll be like, man, you kids should do art, because she has seen the result. And the only way we are going to get these results, let's put in some work. Yes.
Okay. Any other input? Are we out? Okay, I'm coming back to you. Yes, please. Eugene?
Oh, are we answering the same question? Hey. No, yes, it was on the thing she was saying. Along the different things I have done, all right, cool. So the unserious, yes. So I started out as a graphics designer, built a company called Shifting Shadow, became very greedy. It was my first time to touch 300 million for printing only. Made muzi ulide sada muzi kwa atako. FYI. Until March, That failed. The reason it failed miserably for me was a lack of dedicated interest, because I realized as I was, digging into graphics design, I discovered the camera and an Apple product called the iMac. I'm like, and then Lightroom and Photoshop and things after that. Pursued that seriously, built something decent out of that, collaborated with some friends of mine, and we built another company. We started to do weddings, and I found weddings to be the photography of weddings. No, maybe I wasn't creative enough, but like I could guess what we are going to do. What are the main shots? I need this one, I need that one, I need that one, I need that one. There were those 7 shots, we all know them. And then you go. So that became, and I actually started working with my brother, and for him, he took off in that direction, Nazimbe Chintuche, and he really dug deep into that. I experienced a really shitty period of my life that sent me down a depressive episode, and I discovered the wonders of YouTube. My goodness, you can learn a lot of things on YouTube. Yeah, and it introduced me to a thing called design and design thinking. Design thinking then generated a whole new perception on how one can navigate NGO world. One can move through the creative sector. It also introduced me to how design and design thinking and all the manner of aspects. Because if you asked me before then, I would assume that when you said design, it's graphics. Yeah, but then I understood how it is a tool, because actually design in its very exists in everything. So there was about a whole year of taking a gig only for the pure reason of buying data and watching YouTube to understand what that is. It led to the establishment of a small festival, but now that is going to grow really large, called Kampala Design Week. Hey! Anyway, so it led to the establishment of that and the introduction to the value of community, and that introduced me to multiple creatives across, let's say, the African continent and then parts of Europe and whatnot. That eye-opening, and after that, I was away somewhere, and the guys at Motive called and said, "Hey, we need someone to help us establish a community of creatives." So when I came back, I moved and worked as the first community manager for the first purely creative space that we have so far. There's more coming up now, courtesy of that. Then moved to where I am now, which is leading the creative department, where I thought if I move in, I'm going to have to cut off my hair. And that's a debate. Now that I've seen Nino, I feel very, I feel very inspired. For cutting it off, I think there's people in my life who will hate you, Nino. But now that I've seen you, I feel galvanized. I think it is. So at Next Media, heading the creative department, when I came in, they created a role called Creative and Community. Once again, following the idea that creativity cannot move alone. It moves with a very critical aspect, which is the community aspect. So they have not yet figured out what I am doing under the creative thing. They know what I am doing under. Under creative. They have not figured out what I'm doing under community. What they don't know is that the reason, at some point just before Motive, I had discovered that my role within the creative and culture space was not going to be, the camera and etc. I had discovered that my role and my passion lay. And I'm lucky enough that I had gone through some shitty periods of my life. And you know how bad things shape you? You figure out who you are. If you're lucky, or you fall off the wagon, eventually things become worse. I had figured out that my role, this is the field where I'm going to die, like the creative and culture space. That's a hill upon which I'm going to die. But I'd also understood that my role was to merely facilitate those who are coming behind me, or organize for those who are already ahead. So everything thereafter, even the community aspect for Next Media, is going to be purely focused around the creative and culture space. You're going to see that starting January next year. There's going to be a lot of opportunities that are going to be very well structured for the creative and culture space in a community manner. Why did I throw that CV there? How can we be better? I think that as individuals who are participating within this particular, I want to think of us as like a collection. When you look at an anthill or a beehive, there's different people doing different things, and they have picked that role perhaps by nature, and they had no other way. But we have the opportunity to navigate. Dig within yourself and figure out what it is what is going to be your contribution. It is very difficult, honestly, to do that. You're still hunting for a medeyalero. I will never ever underestimate that key factor, because I have done things, my dear people, where the role was purely kulya mmere, kusasula rent, and I get that. But should you ever get to a point where you are fairly comfortable, you can look ahead 3 months and death is not at your door, yeah? Then use that time, those 3 months, to figure out what do you want your contribution to the space, to the community be. Because I feel like all the reward, all the opportunities I have gathered have come not because I wanted to do these things for myself, but because it felt more exciting to do them for other people. And when we do that collectively, buli omu n'alondako amanyi okukola obulungi. N'agamba, by the way, my contribution to the community is this. My contribution to the community is this. I'm going to continue to pursue my thing. So for me, my current thing right now is sound. I am within the creative space. That is what I like to capture. I am enjoying what that guy is doing. I would be doing what Joel is doing over there. That is my exciting thing. Even at work, they have created a whole podcast space, Kuvanga Kavuma yaja. But that is, I think it's purely because the contribution being made or the opportunity that I saw was that I can galvanize. What's the word? You got dictionary young. Pull together. Yeah. So, as an individual and as a way for us to go forward, I think don't do that thing of fearing women. Do that thing where you identify what it is. You identify what it is that you could contribute to the community.
Wow. Let's give it for him, please. Great. One word that I'm carrying to you all, contribute. Contribute. And I'm going to post this to you guys. I have a question. When we look at social media right now, we've taken it to be a tool to help us contribute one or the other. But has social media contributed in a way or necessitated this misconception towards us as artists, as creatives? If in any way it has, how? The microphone is on the floor now.
Adri?
Yeah.
I don't think social media has...
A little louder, and then please introduce yourself. Sorry, I came late.
It's fine.
My bad.
My name is Douglas. I am a creative. I do not specifically like doing one thing. I like exploring, but it's mostly visual designing and 3D. That's what I'm looking at right now. But I think social media has done more to help us to expose and educate, because every person I think in this room has TikTok. For example, if I was to do 3D 3 years ago, that wouldn't have happened, or I wouldn't have enough information about 3D. But like on my evening when I'm free, I know I'll open TikTok and I'll find something interesting. Like, I like that piece of art. Let me create a mood board with that. So when I'm in my groove and I want to create something, I'm looking for inspiration, I literally just go online and I can find something. Now I don't have to go to school to learn art. I can do my 9 to 5 and then create art on the side. So, but it has also caused a few issues, because then you start comparing yourself. You do not see the steps they took to get where they are. And you're like, I'm not good enough. This is not going to do for me. But if you'd given it enough time to develop, it would have been a different case. So in that regard, it's a balance. If you know who you are, it's good. But if you try to discover yourself, it might be a challenge if you don't have an inspiration or someone tell you, by the way, you're not far off. Maybe you need to redirect. So it depends on where you're looking. Yeah.
Anybody else?
When it comes to social media, I can say that right now, social media is like how people view you. So whenever someone says, okay, there is so-and-so, I'll immediately go to Instagram or LinkedIn to check them out. So you should make sure that, okay, this is maybe like this is maybe like how I've observed it. So I think you should make sure that your face on social media is top notch and it talks about what you want people to know you for. So nowadays, whenever we put out an open call or something like that, there is always that option of what's your social media handle. And half of the time, most of the decisions are made by us seeing what you have there. Let me give an example of where we found it so difficult. So we're working with a Kenyan organization and they wanted a DJ, and we had worked with this DJ who was so amazing, and these guys wanted the handle. We go to the DJ's handle, and it's just vibe, and we're just like, what the hell are we going to show these people? Because his work is so good, but then there was nothing to show for it. So social media helps so much now. You always have to keep in mind that this is how people are going to see me. And when you build it up and make it really something that is worth the insert word, it can really change your life. Like someone will just go there and be like, yeah, we are going to work with her or with him. Yeah, so that's something to keep in mind. Yeah.
Great. Anybody else? Yeah? Okay.
I also want to talk about social media. Just want to differ a bit. I've said it doesn't lead to. I believe social media has also been one of the things that has brought misconceptions. I'm just going to give an example, then I explain. So I send someone looks through my handle, and then they're like, wow, this is good. But you creatives are cheeky. You can be having good work on your handles, but you deliver different work. You see? And we have gotten many people given job because of good and appealing social media handles, but they just imported these things from maybe Pinterest or something like that. But yet the people who actually can do these things to the best do not know, they're not even interested in the media handles. They're not actually sensitized, but they're good. They're good. Two, it's on social media that we have found a mushroom of stereotypes. And then these stereotypes create the image that the society views creatives. That's why they come up with collective terms. Those people are like that. For example, you saw the Amapiano mushroom. Boom. Everyone was doing Amapiano dance, TikTok challenges, what? And, you know? So whenever they look at young people, they put in a category. You see? But we're talking about an image being created by people who are just interested in fun, but they don't know that the other side, they're actually creating an image that the whole universe is looking and comparing us with. And then social media is where we're finding people who have just tried out their first artistic endeavor, and then we're having professionals. You see the point? So we now begin seeing categories in social media. Someone says you don't make sense if you're not on LinkedIn. Then, yes, I'm just bringing these things because this is what we are facing. And I'm just trying to look at it in an angle strategically. And then when we talk about Instagram, we say it's a handle for consumers. So it has an age bracket. These statistics are there on Google. Twitter, it has its own age bracket. And they're like, if you want this kind of people, find them here. But surprisingly, the best photographers I've seen, both in Uganda and abroad, have their work on Instagram. But but their clients are found on LinkedIn. Are you seeing the thing? Your clients are found on LinkedIn. They don't even want to anything to do with your Instagram. But your best work is on Instagram. And who is consuming your work? 11-year-old who seated on a couch with biscuits. Yes, and you need the money. What I'm saying is, sometimes the misconceptions that we have been the result of it, but there are some which we create even subconsciously without us knowing. And then this comes because creatives are not, we haven't, it's now we bless the Lord that we're having such talks where we get to know that actually you need to have your work in the right place. But it was until then that people never knew that actually, because of my target market here, I need to position myself here. You get the point? So like, oh, you rock, but it's only your family who knows your work. Yes. But guess what? A guy who is getting the 3 million one, you know. Oh God. I pray you get more and better. But I'm just winding up, and I hope we are resonating. You know, let's believe that there are some misconceptions we can't fight, but those we can fight. First, positioning, organization, collaborations. Then our fellow writers, please write something good about us also in the newspapers and in the logs. Do some biographies. Please. Do some biographies on us. Yes, write books about us. Let those books be published. Can I go to Aristoc and I find a Gandhi and they're giving tips? Yes, the story of a Gandhi. And they are giving us, they're telling us the gist of a portrait. Thank you so much. Attached to, we need it. We need the story of a Gandhi. Thank you so much.
Oh, please.
I think that's more than I need, yeah. My name is Patrick. I'm a portrait and documentary photographer. I'm from Kenya. I relocated here 5 months ago. And first of all, I'd like to echo my fellow creative on what he's saying. I think social media can become very overwhelming. I personally am not good at it. I do my best, but I'm not really good at it. That's why I've focused on only one social media, which is Instagram, but mostly is to generate traffic to my website. So that's what I do. And also I use the stories a lot. I don't post a lot, but I use the stories to just engage the followers, which is something that I've learned over time. I think it's very important we take, sorry, what's your name? Barbara's suggestion about the importance of being on social media, because that's an insider's secret into what they look at when they are hiring for jobs. So the reason I chose to focus on Instagram is because I cannot keep up with social medias. I cannot keep up with TikTok. That's why I've not opened TikTok. I think it targets a certain generation, which I'm not able to. I'm not able to participate in the challenges or create those challenges. Yeah, I have 2 left feet. So I think it's important that we look at our niche and focus on, like, put our energies on that niche, and then hopefully grow. As you grow your brand, you're able to employ digital marketers who can now focus on just social media, and you can focus on the creative side. But right now, you're the accountant, you're the social media manager, you're the everything of that business. Yeah. The other thing I'd like to mention about social media, taking my last 30 seconds on this, is ethics. I think it's important that we, because of my line of work, documentary photography, I think it's also important that we put much attention on what we post and how we post it. We have seen these stories of when our friends from outside Africa and those countries come to here and how they portray Africa, and when we go to their countries, how we portray their countries. I think it's important we start with us as Africans on what stories, on how we can portray stories. It can be a very devastating story, but within that story, there's a light in it. Why not focus on that light? Acknowledge that this is happening, but focus on the light that's in that story. So I think it's important as creatives, we focus on ethics when it comes to social media and the content that we create. Thank you.
I would like to add to his point that you don't have to be good at everything. Luckily, there's a program in your hometown. No, not your hometown, your home country. It's called Performer by Mutoni, the drama queen, and she looking at her model is a model that we are actually also bringing here, which is you're good as a photographer, Kawa, stay as a photographer. Let's surround you with like 2-3 other people who are good at other things, because collectively the 5 of you, yeah, that again community. Man, hey, collectively you all grow when. As for example, the writer becomes a better writer and therefore gets gigs. People start to ask you who writes things for you. You're like, it's this person. The social media manager becomes much better at that. They're like, who manages your social media? But from the beginning, all of you need to agree that this is a thing we are going with. We are going to do this together, and we're going to suffer here together. And maybe someone may be lackluster at the beginning, but you will find that if you do that, it's been proven to work, right? Like the singer just focuses on tuning their voice, and they don't have to worry about what's the stage going to look like, because there's a set designer who is worried about that. We only fear to do that because we feel. I actually don't know why we fear to do that.
All right. So basically, please, you the person actually to respond to this now, that how important are supportive communities in helping artists navigate all these, because please.
Guy, yeah, I must say
the fact that you're advocating for community help us understand this at a deeper level. Because at this point, the war that's before us is what's portrayed of us out there. What's portrayed of this industry out there. But now you brought the aspect of, no, if we collaborated, and I'm working maybe the 3 of us here, the 4 of us, me, I'm a specialist in something else, he's also the same. How do we bring this to help us curb down what is perceived of the industry?
The perception about, I don't really worry much about the perception of the industry, to be honest. Why is that? It is at work we've been handling a crisis, and the client felt like the crisis we are handling, we are not handling. Naenga, we have dedicated 11 souls to figuring out that problem. But for them, the perception they are getting the other side is that we are not working, and they sent emails and blah, blah, blah. And our boss told them. Anywho, so the thing about perceptions is that they are almost impossible to control on the other end. The best route to handling perception is working on you. Yeah. So for example, we acknowledge that in order for us to grow, then the communities need to grow. A rising tide lifts all boats. Airtime atanso kugwako. I told you naguze 1.5 GB at yeah. Yes. So you cannot and will not, and as long as you focus on fighting the perception externally, that is going to be a continual losing journey. Because the other thing about someone who has decided to think a particular way about you is that they will keep changing goalposts. Yeah, they will keep finding a new thing to be unhappy with you about. And you then, I mean, if you love suffering, you can continue doing that. I think that there's some of us who are inspired by being hated upon, so keep going. But my suggestion would be that internally within us, we know where our shortcomings are. One, it's the identification that you cannot do everything and recognizing that. I spent about a year of not working. I chose to leave Motive because I'd gone like, you know what, actually I've hit my peak. There's no more better things I'm going to do here. I need to find a new place. I spent a lot of Sunday mornings in this studio shooting content for a friend of mine who has a foundation. And I was doing that for free because I enjoyed shooting, but also because by doing that, it was building her community. And that for me was so satisfying, even more so because the mister would come on Sunday and open for me. Do you know what it means to have to to have to come on Sunday at 9, at 8, and open the studio and then go and sit and like play games or whatnot and things like that. So I have benefited a lot from communities. I like just holding me up in times of need and etc. And I will always, advocate for that. But I also advocate for individuals within, because we are only as good as the weakest link in there. So for all the individuals within that conversation to identify the strong suit and recognize your weakness and build on your strength and say, hey, I'm good at this. I know you're good at that. And for us guys to also be open to those conversations. Yeah, because sometimes some guy comes, hey, can we do this together? You're like, bruh. Yeah.
I'd like to, to add to that. Yes, I agree with Eugene that focusing on, these people, look at them, how they don't tebatulaba, is a losing. But I found that one of the greatest, in my own art, but with other people as well, one of the best ways anyway to change the perception is to do the work, there's been times where I've walked into the room, like he was saying, you walk into the room, you had all these conversations, you sent your glowing, whatever you've done, and then you can tell sometimes communications is in the non-verbal, right? That they don't rate you. There's a time I had long locks and sometimes I would walk in and you find someone and then they look at you, they say, but why don't you have neat hair, But I again, speaking, it's important to, again, some spaces, if you're going, you represent, but I was also young and I was like, no, I don't know, the angst of young adulthood, but I also knew that what I'm bringing to the table, I've put in the work, and therefore, and I don't do haphazard. It may not always be the best, but I'll bring my very best to whatever. And so I knew that as soon as they see my stuff, they see me in action, and they see it, there will be no going back. So sometimes it's as simple as that, as doing your very best, putting in the work. He was speaking about it. I think everyone has spoken about that. So that no matter what, they'll be like, that guy, what? But what can we do, right? And but specifically speak on as a community, again, it's that thing of we must not fall into the trap of wanting to emulate everything from the corporate culture or from we have to figure out ways to balance, but we can't emulate everything from neoliberalism. Ours is different, and so no, I mean free market, attached to have a job, a specific job that is considered a job, that kind of thing, right? So in the way that for them it's like me, right? I'll go, I'll get a master's, then I'll come, and then I'll be the one with the highest degree, then I'll go and get a PhD, then I'll throw someone under the bus at work and get ahead if the boss likes me better than... we must not especially copy those very harmful, ways from that, because they won't lead. Already we have established society has kind of disfavored, right? So we cannot afford to go against each other in that way. Then what it becomes is what he was saying. So someone needs writers. As I will speak for myself, I have, when I was contributing often to Daily Monitor, I chose the arts section, right? And then I was also writing about spending nights at plays which start 13 hours later, but I'm there, right? So sometimes it's as, and of course, it's it's not like I was getting a lot of money, but sometimes it's like creating that sacrifice of, okay, I recognize my duty to this community. And so because of that, no one is paying me, no one is, I'm not getting, a hand clap from this, but I'm building. And so being there, doing the work, if someone, is like, okay, I have some photographer friends I have are just like, these things of English, I don't know how. And then sometimes, it requires for the words to be written, for copy to be there. And then hit me up. I'll be like, I'm not going to treat you like a corporation and charge you mad money, right? 300. Yeah. So and then in the other way as well, because I'm not a professional photographer, so I'm going to need photographers. It's along the way, and I'm going to reach out. And sometimes it's even not just free things. Sometimes I'm going to walk into a project that requires me to document as a writer, and then maybe they say, yeah, so we'll give you a photographer. I'll be like, I know someone who is great, and we work together. Maybe make it a joint deal, And if you recognize, if you've done the work and you recognize that you have that power to play that card, then you can be like, I'm negotiating a double deal. I work with this person. It's who I know. They are great. Yeah. And obviously, also the other person, be prepared with don't have the DJ's social medias. Yeah. So then if they want you, they'll be like, okay, bring your guy. And then you're both eating, you're getting the money, and then like that. And sometimes it's teaching. Sometimes it's saying, maybe before someone comes to you, be like, yo, Eugene, you do great stuff, but I don't see it anywhere. What's up? Like, what's up with your social media? I can help you with that, because, I'm in the marketing communications, whatever. And sometimes I'll be like, it's a lot of that. Like sometimes it's like someone approaches you, but other times it's taking that initiative of saying who needs help where, and just doing what needs to be done.
So I want to thank you on that note. And it's on that note that we come to the end of this studio talk. But again, I'm going to leave. Come again. But this is something you need to ponder over, guys. And I want you to remember this, that artists are not just creators. We are storytellers, we are dreamers, and catalysts for change. So let's go do that. Let's go debunk all the misconception the public has about us. Okay? So let's go be ambassadors on that note. And I want to thank you for this meeting. I want to thank our panelists. Let's give them one. Yeah. And most importantly, I want to thank the Uganda German Cultural Society for sponsoring this particular episode. Until we meet again. Thank you. Leave me alone now. All right. God bless you all.